Hello, Next Geners. Welcome to our Friday form preview show. Well, we like to do it on a Thursday in the spring to give you an extra day to find a winner. And we've got the man from Sportsbet, Julian Vallance. It's great to have you on the Next Gen show because you'll be out there at Caulfield on Saturday and you've been busy finding winners this spring, mate. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Damo. Thanks, Hayden, for having me on. Yeah, it's pretty exciting to be able to be out there, get to see Zaki and get to see these Caulfield Guineas horses, these 3-year-old horses, and the Turac's a ripper as well. So very fortunate to be able to be out there. Obviously, we're in a bit of a mess here in Melbourne. I don't know where the end is near or not, but yeah, pretty lucky. So looking forward to a good day. And I think the rain's going to stay away as well. I think early doors, we were thinking we're going to probably be on a wet track, maybe soft 5, soft 6. I don't think that's going to be the case. So for the punters out there, I'd be looking at a dry track.
Yeah, I was actually out there last year where there was no crowd. And I remember, Hayden, we were all over Ole Kirkett. I think we got in early at about $6. And what a ride it was from Willie Pike. I think there's been a few replays, boys, of that ride of Willie Pike's this week.
Yeah, for sure. He's in the breeding barn now, and his arch rival, Asar, goes around later in the day for Team Sharky.
Yes, for Leneva Park. Before we get started, we do have a little competition we're running over the weekend. It's we've tagged it the Next Gen Guineas, Dressed to Impress. So we're going to run a little comp. We want you to post your photos at home, dressed up in your best gear. MRC are donating a super box for Caulfield Cup Day. So if you've ever had one of these super boxes, they're not just party pies and sausage rolls. It's the real deal. And Oxford Clothing are chucking in a voucher as well. So a bit of fun on social media this week. Just hashtag NextGen on Twitter or Facebook and send us a pic of how you're celebrating Guineas Day. Now, Jules, I've got your track report on the Sportsbet website via the blog, Rail in the True at Caulfield. We're looking, as you said, either a good 4, maybe soft 5. But you've broken down, I guess, the winning percentages of horses where they settle in the run. You've got 1,000 to 1,200 metres leaders, really. There seems to be an edge when it comes to return on investment, and then 1,400 metres plus again. And Hayden and I always speak about it. You put yourself on the lead or on the pace and you're going to improve your chances. But tell us, is that a starting point for you, looking at how the track's going to play and where you might be able to find an edge?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's the first point is working out, obviously, the rail comes out Monday when they come from the noms, and then from there we've got our database at Sportsbet that I sort of plug in the parameters that what we're going to be working on. And for this one, I've worked on the good 4, soft 5, and Caulfield's really interesting because sometimes we get that northerly wind, especially into the chute, which can really have impact on the leaders, and especially the jockeys like to sit up. I don't think we're going to see that on Saturday. And once you get this track drying out, it just becomes a place where I think it's in all Australian racetracks, to be honest, and you guys will be aware of this, is that it's just hard to make ground. I mean, on dry tracks, you're running quick times. These are good horses too. We've got Group 1 horses running on Saturday. If you're back in the field, especially backmarkers, I mean, you look at those kinds of stuff. Every time we bring out the stats, backmarkers is just the lowest percentage play you can have. And I know that horses like Chautauqua and that can win and be the outlier, but you don't see them too often. So always look at the stats and then work from a basis of there is what's a high percentage play compared to a low percentage play. And that doesn't mean that I'm necessarily going to back every horse on speed on Saturday, but it just means that those horses that I've got in the back, it's going to be factored into my pricing, and they're going to have a bit of an edge on their rivals to really come into calculations for me from a punting perspective. So, yeah, always break up the chute at Caulfield, 1,000 to 1,200 compared to the circle races as well. We do that with Flemington and Moonee Valley, not so much. They've got the 955 and 1,000 little bit shoots. But, it's important to do that, to break that down, because they all just don't go out of the same sort of distance. And I think for the punters out there, I think that's a good starting point. I mean, we saw it at Flemington last week. I think there's no doubt that the straight race probably a rating or a rating and a half slower than the circle. And punters just have to understand that when they're doing their form.
You mentioned pricing horses. Is that something you do? Do you price every horse in every field, or do you go through the top 10 in each market? How do you go about pricing up a field?
Yeah, no, so I price, obviously I've come from the trading floor, so I've spent 9 years on the Sportsbet trading floor, and before that I was a handicapper under Greg Carpenter for 5 or 6 years. So I had the background in that kind of space for a long period of time, and when I went to Sportsbet, it was we price up our own races and then we go from there. So back when I was obviously working on the trading floor purely, I was setting the markets, and that's what you do. So I've continued to do that, provide the prices for the Melbourne boys now on the Metros on the Saturdays, to just give them a second opinion, because second opinion is always really important in that kind of space. And always work to 100% market and go from there. So, do that, and then hopefully I can find an edge and try and have a bet somewhere. So that's where I try and land.
So if you're pricing up the market, I assume, are you able to bet with Sportsbet? Are you only able to bet with Sportsbet, or do you have to bet with someone who's not Sportsbet? And then are you looking for other bookies that maybe have the market a little bit wrong in your eyes?
Yeah, so definitely can't bet with Sportsbet. So that's a no go. But obviously trying to get on anywhere else you can sort of get on. And I think it's the landscape's changed a little bit probably in the last 18 months, 2 years as well. I think Racing Victoria is trying to be proactive with the min bet limits. I think they're really important now. Talking without my Sportsbet hat on, I would love for them to go to Metro 5K and Country 2K. But at the moment, 1K, 2K is good. It's a good starting point. And if you can get on at 3 or 4 different joints, well, then you're there to make a bit of money. So, look, there's always improvement to be made around all of that kind of space and, deductions and all those kinds of things. I think we need to come onto a level playing field with them. I think they're all a little bit too all over the place. So there's a bit of work to do, but I love the space where they're trying to get to at the moment.
Hayden, what's your take on how Caulfield will play on the weekend?
Typically, when we go through Caulfield, Rail True, we like to keep things pretty simple here. I've got an expectation Caulfield, barring wind or weather, doing something extraordinary. Rail True typically plays hard on speed. Leaders stalk is highly favoured. Shoot races, I'm prepared to entertain horses at midfield or worse. Be race shape dependent, of course. Bigger fields, 13 plus, 13, 14 plus. Runners are going to get the opportunity to get right out into the crown of the track. Get better than, say, 10, 12 off the fence. That's going to be the golden stuff, but it's going to be mighty hard to get there.
All right, let's have a look at the Guineas then, Jules. How did you, obviously it's priced up with Animo and Artorias, clearly the two to beat. Is that similar to how you see it, or have the barriers at all thrown a spanner in the works there?
Barriers are an interesting one for me, especially for these kinds of horses. I'm not too fussed, and I'd probably look at it from a perspective of where do these horses probably settle anyway. Artorias is probably the trick for me with Gate 2. I've gone back through its 7 starts or 8 starts. I know it's its grand final and maybe Frosty can push it up, but I've just never seen anything in its profile in those early doors for it to settle in the first 5 or 6, which then makes me have him, at least 3-back rail, possibly 4-back rail, which then you're factoring in a lot of luck. And I know he's got a great turn of foot and he needs a fast run race. And if they do sit up a little bit at some stage, we know he's got the ability to over race. So there's a little bit in that. Animo, as much as he was a really good 2-year-old on our stuff at Sportsbet, he'd never done a massive figure. He'd beaten those horses as a 2-year-old, but he'd never put a big number up. And then obviously the Golden Rose, and Hayden, you probably got it the same, and Damien, you'd have it the same. That race just went through the roof. Like, that was an enormous rating race, the Golden Rose. And from that, I can trust that form line, and that's the form line I definitely want to take compared to, say, the Guineas Preludes and even Forgot You, who's going really well, but I think probably 2,000 metres is where he really comes into his own. So they're the two, absolutely, Animo, Artorias. And for me, I've marked Animo shorter than the market, and I'm sort of just hoping on the fact that Ollie can find a backside at some stage. And if he runs up to the Golden Rose, I think he's the horse to beat. And yeah, as I said, I've marked him shorter than the market. And I've got Artorias bigger than the market. So the way I play is I'm only going to back horses that I've got shorter than the market, that I think I've got an edge over the market. So I'm in Animo's corner at the moment.
Hayden?
Yeah, it's interesting what Jules says there because, me, one for I'm the first person in Australia to dismiss weights and barriers. For me, barrier 14, I think Damien's going to get every opportunity to jump out, have a look to his left-hand side and find the runner to follow. I think for a horse like Animo, a 3-wide position with cover would be the golden position in a race like this. Ollie's just not going to have to think about it. He'll shoot for the part of the track that he wants. Frosty might have to get inventive from where he is. The horse first section, the fastest he's ever gone through the first section is negative 1.1. We're going to ask you one or two things here. We're either going to ask you to go career fastest, or you're going to be fall back the fence, and Frosty's going to have to basically spend anywhere between 400 and 600 metres trying to weave his way away from the rail, so he can come with Animo, because Damien's going to know exactly where he is. I reckon Damien would be quite happy to position one length back from him so he can see him. And the second, if Damien feels like he's got the checkmate move, Oliver that is, he might say good night. Ollie's not going to muck around here.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're right. And I mean, he's probably got the right horses to follow. Like, he's got Captive and I think just inside him. Like, he's no mug. He'll want to get into the race. So if he can find the right backside, I'm with you, Hayden. I think he's the one, as long as everything he's come through that Golden Rose. And I think for the punters out there as well, is he had a setback early doors in this prep. So the Golden Rose, as much as, yes, it was a target race, probably came up to him a little bit too soon. And I feel like now this is the peak run in the prep. So, I think if he doesn't win on Saturday, I don't know where they go with him, to be honest.
Can you make your case for anything else then? Because it does look like it's clear top two.
Yeah, I'm half kicking up for a horse like Tiger of Malay, just from the fact that I think it can probably settle in the first 3 or 4 with Craig. Craig's so smart. He'll know what to do at this time. Look, I've got those top two clearly ahead. I think Mr. Mozart lacks the class, but again, he's another map runner for me that if they are just dominating on speed, Tiger of Malay and Mr. Mozart are the two map horses that I want to keep an eye on at bigger prices. And I've sort of gapped the rest in terms of my market. So, I've got a horse like Lightsaber 20 plus. So, and I know he was okay in a prelude, but I just don't know if he's got the ability to run a real good late split, whereas I know now the Animo, the Artorias can do that.
I'm interested to ask you, as you said, you worked as a handicapper under Greg Carpenter. When we look at a race like the Toorak, how much emphasis do you put on weights? Do you rate, what's the word I'm looking for, Hayden? I guess rate horses and make allowances for the weight that they carried, like a Dan O'Sullivan does, for example, or some of those guys?
Yeah, look, I factor it in. I've probably come a little bit, probably when I first started on the trading floor, I was heavily involved with weights and I thought they were the be-all and end-all. I think I've come a little bit around on that, and they're clearly not. You want your horses probably to be in a rhythm and map position, I think, for me, is probably most important compared to, say, the weight. But I think it does have some impact. And the way we do it at Sportsbet is obviously every horse we give an individual rating for every race, and that is dependent on their weight and what they have to run to. So, a horse like I'm Thunderstruck, you look at it and it's got 52 kilos, it's well placed, but that doesn't mean a horse like Tafani can't win with 58. We saw it last year with Mr. Quickie carrying a really big weight to being able to win the race, come over Buffalo River. So it's not all of it, but it does have definitely an impact on how I price up my horses for sure.
So how'd you go pricing up the Toorak?
Yeah, I mean, I've marked Thunder around 320 now. I know he's 270, 280. He's pretty solid across the board at the moment. It's an interesting one because I marked him clear top pick, and I want to be with him, but I will not back him until he touches $3. So if he doesn't touch $3, I just have to let that one go. And I think that's probably very different from the punters out there that go, well, I've just got to be with this horse no matter the price. For me, it's extremely price dependent, and that's because I probably bet into a lot of races. So if I'm not becoming price sensitive, then I can burn through my bank pretty quickly. He's got to touch $3 for me. If he does, I think he's the winner of the race. I've got a big sort of gap to the next horse in the market, sort of that. I mean, I really rate Elephant as a horse, and I think he's probably just about the map horse of the day. I think he probably gets the 1-1, gets all the advantages. But I just think the other thing with that is Gate 4, I don't think there's any spoil for I'm Thunderstruck as well. I mean, you guys might, have that, disagree with that, but I just think it's going to be tricky for Jai to be able to get space. He's a really big horse. So many factors in it. I mean, that's why we love this game, is there's so many pieces of the puzzle. You can be the best horse in the race. It doesn't guarantee you success at all. So very tricky.
So if you've got say your second favourite, you've priced it $4.55 and the market comes up 10, would you be backing your second favourite then? Are you looking for? Yeah.
100%. Yeah. Anytime I think I've got a horse that's clearly over I've got it shorter than the market, I'll be backing. I mean, I had something on Second Slip. I think they put up one of the calls put up $17, $18. I've marked it $12 or $13. Just thought it might sit on speed and be hard to run down. So I'm happy to back it there. And then obviously at the death, I'm hoping I can get around $3 on Thunderstruck, and that's how I sort of set up my book. And that's how I'll play. But I won't, end up having 5 or 6 bets. The only time I will, as we call it, cluster bet, is if I'm hard against the favourite. If the favourite's gone up $2.50 and I've marked it $4, absolutely, I'll be backing 3 or 4 horses that I've clearly got a lot shorter than that. So yeah, I'm happy to take. What I'll say is I don't have like a 5th selection, a 6th selection, a 7th selection, a 2nd selection, a 4th selection. I'll just have my prices, and from there I'll bet.
Makes sense. Hayden, how have you looked at the Toorak?
Oh, it's an interesting race. Typically, a horse like On Thunderstruck's the one that I want to take on, and I always want to take on that style of horse, the Get Back. I'll spot you 10 lengths. I don't have the big number to my name yet. From a profiling perspective, and Jules, I'm not sure how high you rated him off the previous, but from a profiling perspective, when they haven't got the number, and I'm suspecting you might need a new PB, even though the PB is not going to be that great. You might need a new PB to win. And I can rate a horse like Elephant, who I think, I agree with you, he's the map horse in the race. And I'm fairly confident he'll go to a certain level or to a certain number. I'm more prepared to bet in the 1x4, 2x8 style, a horse like Elephant, than I am trying to get stuck into, $2 plus a horse like Thunderstruck. What's your thoughts on something like that?
Yeah, I think that's a really good call. And the fact is, when you're taking 270, 280 about a horse like On Thunderstruck, in essence, if I'm taking 270, 280, I want a lot of factors going in my favour. To be honest, I probably want the horse to be sitting in the first 4 or 5. I want him to be able to have done the number plenty of times before, and all those other factors in my favour. There's a couple of issues with that 270 I've got with Thunderstruck, hence why I'll only take the $3. I agree with everything you say. In terms of our stuff and what I've got him going to, I've got him going to a mark, probably that 2 starts ago at Flemington, I think it was, in lower grade. He did a pretty big mark with us. We were happy to bonus him out through that to get him to a bigger figure. So I've got him to that space. He regressed in the Rupert Clark with me, so he's got to bounce back to that. But yeah, I totally agree. When you're taking horses with a 2 in front of them, you have to have a lot of positives. And if you've got 1 negative or even 2, I think it's one of those ones where you say, I'm happy to have left it, and you move on to the next one. You don't chase it.
Yeah, I just know from me and with what I do, if I'm backing horses with this profile and I'm constantly taking, mid 2s, I'm going to lose big time long term.
Yep. I agree with that.
Hayden, I'm interested in your take on Superstorm, and we use IVR data, Jules. Superstorm first up was -8 lengths through the first section. Last up in the Zaki race, he's gone nearly 4 lengths above benchmark through that first section. So it's a big increase in early speed. Is he the horse that run will really bring him on? And we know his peak is, his peak is probably above most of these horses, especially at the mile, where he's got the big figures at the mile. Also factoring in that this is first prep with Danny O'Brien, and you can imagine that Danny O'Brien set a real grand final for him, 3rd up.
Yeah, it was interesting because I was very keen on him to run 2nd last start to Zaki. I thought the race was going to be quite slow, quite controlled. I was very confident he had the best 400-metre kick in the race, and that was all that was going to be required to run 2nd to Zaki. Watching them live, I thought, you just haven't come up. You're not very good. The squeeze between the 6 and the 2s basically sorted you out, and you wanted to half duck in, and the pressure got to you. Then I go back and have a look at the race, and they've gone 4 lengths above through the first section. He's gone, almost 13 lengths faster than the start prior.
That's what stood out to me.
Yeah, and then they backed it off. Craig's just controlled it basically between the 1,000 and 600, and he's just done what Craig does, and he just poured the pressure on between the 6 and the 2, said see you later to everybody else, and the 2 behind it just basically couldn't go with it. I'm right agreeing with exactly what you said. That's the style of run that can really bring this horse on. He did something very, very similar at Ascot going back March 2020, where he had the big first section, really bounced going into Flemington, into the mile, and then was excellent at Caulfield the following start over 1,600. So that hard run could really bring him on. He's a very dangerous runner in this. Very dangerous.
I should say he was third up last start, so he'll be fourth up on the weekend, but he's coming off a long break. Jules, do you put more weight on what a horse has done this prep and the way they're I guess, the trajectory they're on, or will you go back and look 2 or 3 preps back and see that they've got, that elite performance under their locker when you're talking about a grand final type race?
Yeah, definitely go back through the whole body of work. I think it's really important because I think you find it as well with horses. They can be pattern horses. So whether it be maybe third up or fourth up, they'll run to a peak or whatever stage, or if they get to, say, a mile for the first time after having 2 runs at 1,400 metres. I mean, you see it a lot with 2,000-metre horses. I put a lot of emphasis on horses second go 2,000 metres in a prep. I think that's where they run their peak and then they continue to build from there. So, yeah, definitely go back because if they've done it before, then it means they can do it again. And I think that's important to understand as well. It's worth noting they've gone the blinkers again. So maybe that's to try and spark him up a little bit as well. I think when he went blinkers first time, he ran 4th or 5th in a Kingston Town in the Group 1 over there over 1,800 metres when he was a 3-year-old. So he's an interesting horse for me. I sort of marked him around market price. I probably wouldn't back him, but he's too good to dismiss, obviously. But that's what you want from a Toorak. It's a handicap race. It makes Australian racing very unique. They all should get their chance from top to bottom. I
think, the other interesting horse is Tofano, who, we know she's the class animal. You mentioned that Mr. Quickie won this race carrying weight last year. We've seen Behemoth last year carry weight to win a handicap. Zutori comes to mind in a new market. So you certainly can't rule out top weights because they have a class edge. But does the mile scare punters here, do you think, with Tofano?
It scares me. I thought she had every possible around Incentivise. Now, we know Incentivise has gone on and done what he did, but he was a little bit soft first up, and that race didn't rate through the roof from a 1,600 metres point of view. We knew what Incentivise had to go on from 2,000 metres plus, so you can bonus him. But the ones behind it, I didn't think you could really bonus. So she gets the ideal map. I mean, it's perfect, the draw. Craig can really look after her, and around Caulfield might be a little bit softer than Flemington, but yeah, that's the concern for me. I think she's an outstanding 1,400-metre mare, and we've seen that through the Brisbane Carnival. But for me, at 1,600 metres, I'm happy to take her on. I marked at $15, so she wins, I lose.
Okay, so you've got Thunderstruck on top, as you said, $2.60 with Sportsbet at the moment. And you've had something on second slip. Is there anything else, or does it get to a point where this is just a race where you'll have that little spec bet on something rough and just watch them go around?
Yeah, they're the two for me. I mean, I've marked Elephant around that market price, but if I start backing Elephant as well, my margin goes. So I can't back everything. And I can clearly see Elephant can win this race. There's no doubting that at all. But just the way my prices are and what the price is at the moment, there's no edge for me. So back the early horse, second slip, thought it was a little bit over. Hoping to get $3 on Thunderstruck. If I don't get $3, I stay out and I've just got second slip running for me and I have to move on from that. Thunderstruck comes out and wins at $2.60. I can't be kicking rocks after it. I've just got to move on.
And are we all saying that Sierra Sue can't beat Thunderstruck again?
Well, it's a horse race. Anything's possible, mate. So you never know. But look, yeah, I've marked her $18. She's running really well, but she's going to have to probably go back to last, I'd suggest, from that gate. Makes it tricky.
Hayden, where have you settled?
For me, I get the perfect setup. Damien Lane, Elephant. I'm really big on rider profiles. And when riders get, this to me is a perfect Damien Lane ride. This is jump, stalk, what should be a good lead speed. He'll feel the velocity through the first section. He'll know he's in the right position. And what Damien will look to do is he'll look to tag off the back of it and say, okay, if you want to back off and cheat for a second, I'm just going to pour the pressure back on. He's the one I expect to take over in the straight from the leaders and be the one to catch. So for me, I like backing horses like this, hard on speed, stalking the lead speed, and I'm going to get better than $2 a place. That's where I'll land. Of course, horses like Superstorm, he's definitely there for me, as is Thunderstruck. And the horse that I'm really not sure what to do with right now, because I'm a bit funny with horses second up off of 300 days plus, I like to really take him on and then come back to them is Harbour Views. He's the runner. I can't really work out what to do with him. And I think he's the one, if there's a $35 winner, it'll be him.
Fair point. Do we have to spend much time on the Might and Power Stakes? Does Zaki just go around and win again?
Oh, I hope for racing he does, and it sets up a pretty good Cox Plate. So, fingers crossed.
Is there any edge in betting in this race?
I don't think so, mate. Not the way I can see it. I think I marked him $1.28 or something like that. So, move on.
What sort of price, Jules, would you have to get a horse like him before you thought, I can just square up a little bit of margin for the day?
Yeah, I mean, if I marked him $1.10, I think in those days when Winks was kicking around $1.30, and we were actually I spoke about this a little bit a couple of weeks ago. I was trading the Cox Plate, and the last two Cox Plate, I never actually ever had to even price her up because the market just sorted herself out at that $1.10 or whatever she was. I haven't had to do that with Zaki yet, so you can't dominate the market yet. But if I marked him $1.10, I'd be backing him for sure. Absolutely. And I know that you've got to spend big, but that's what you've got to do in this game to obviously make something out of it. And I think for the punters out there to understand, sometimes a $1.26 horse can be value, which sounds insane. But if you market $1.10, it actually is.
I'm guessing there's no value at $1.65 probably to run second. Yeah,
I mean, not for me.
Yeah.
No, it's, that would be a market that I'd look at. Bookmaker hat on, Jules. If the Sportsbet hat comes off for a second and the pure punter hat goes on for those watching at home, Zaki's the sort of horse to me that's going to carry the vast majority of the punter in a multi or an all-up. You like that, or do you think it's dangerous?
Very dangerous. Very dangerous. I'm one of those punters. Don't worry about that. I've got incentivising him going for a little bit back in June. But I think the more legs you put on, hey, the more chance you've got to get beat. And I also believe if you're going to have a multi, and I think a lot of people probably disagree with me on this, if you're going to have a multi, then you should be backing them singly as well. If you think, I just have to add, a bit of, I'm getting a little bit of an earn, so I add it in the multi, all of a sudden your risks become so much higher. The punters probably don't get that too much, but it becomes massive in favour of the house in terms of the bookmakers. They're now a chance to get you. They're a chance to get you. So as much as, they're likely to win, we know horse racing, it doesn't work. And the more legs you put in, the more chance you got to get knocked over.
Yeah, that's what I say. It's like putting another green or two on the roulette wheel.
Yeah.
That's what you start doing. You start playing. It's dangerous. I like to talk people out of. I don't like spaced multi-betting, so I don't like having something go around race one or the day before, and then you've got it all up into something else. The amount of times me previously would get stuck and it'd rain or the wind would kick up, or people would start saying, "Oh, the track's off," and I'm sitting there on a leader and I know you can't win anywhere near the fence. Or you're on a back marker and you're millions and you've got him all up for a couple of $1,000s, you feel pretty sick about it. So, I am negative on it. I think there is a time and a place for it. But, yeah, it's interesting because I know, you've only got to read social media when a horse like Zaki gets done. You can just feel the pain of the punter.
Yeah. And clearly he's going to be. Everyone's going to have probably their Turax selection and into Zaki or whatever, Animo into Zaki. And these ones, you find one up in Sydney, there might be a shorty, they'll be rolling it into Zaki, and then one of them falls over. Well, the whole hearth caves in on everyone. So, yeah, the more legs, the more chance you got to get done.
With a horse like Zaki, when Sportsbet hat back on, you hear on the TV all the time that, the bookies are celebrating and all that sort of thing. With a horse like Zaki, if he gets beat, is it that big a deal for a company like Sportsbet? Do you just take all the all-up money? Do you take those who like the idea of having 50 to win on him to try and get a couple of bucks because they know they'll get a bonus bet if they get beat? What is it from a sports book perspective when a horse like him gets rolled? What is it like in there?
Yeah, look, from a trader's perspective, it depends. If you're owning that race, you probably want him to get beat because you've got a big liability and it, can impact your numbers and things like that. But I think from a whole perspective of a sports bet, if you had it overarching, you want these good horses winning Because what it does is it brings more people into the racetrack to go, actually, I want to follow that horse. Now, whether they back Zaki or not, but they're actually getting a theory about, oh, I know this horse now. It's actually the front of the paper. We had Black Caviar. We're very lucky with her. We had Winks. In the end, we wanted them to keep winning because it gets more people through the door and it gets people more interested in racing. The problem with racing at the moment is don't worry about the Sydney versus Melbourne rivalry in terms of where it takes your turnover. It's sport. Sport's the one that's taking the turnover. It's so much easier to have a sport bet. It's a head-to-head. My team versus your team, pretty simple. I can work that out. Racing's got so many edges, angles, as you all know, and as everyone knows at home, that we have to try and educate people to make it that racing's actually worthwhile punting on, because it's really tricky. It's hard to win on racing on the punt, but we've got to try and make it that it's actually interesting and people want to have a bet. And I think Winks, Black Caviar, hopefully horses like Incentivize and Zaki can do that for the next couple of years. What is your tip for a young punter out there on, being successful backing horses? It's a lot of hard work. It's really hard work. It's you got to find your own edge, and it's whether it's whatever it is, whether it's some people do trials, some people do jump outs, some focus on one area. You can't do the whole thing. It's just too hard to be able to bet in Perth, bet in Melbourne, bet in Adelaide, bet in Brisbane, and be across it all. Even if you've got the greatest database in the world, I'll also say to the people out there that if you're thinking about getting a database or some type of thing that gives you the form, like you guys use IVR and obviously there's punting form and those things out there, just be careful that you want to be able to have your own thumbprint on it. So yes, they're giving you the information, but you want to be able to make sure you can bonus it the way you see it. So you've got a bit of a difference to someone else who uses the same database. So look, what I'd say is it's a great game, but you've got to really, if you want to win at it, and B, it's a long game, and you can't really celebrate the wins too much as you can't really get despondent about the losers, because there's a lot more losses than there are wins. I can tell you that for sure. Do you grab the acceptances on a Wednesday and literally start then, or how much time do you spend on it? Yeah, I'm really lucky that my actual job is to analyse form for a company. So I've been extremely blessed that since I did handicapping so many years ago, and then I've been at Sportsbet now for nearly 9 years on the trading floor, that my whole life has been able to just analyse form. That's all I do. So extremely lucky. My day for a Wednesday for the Saturday meeting is sort of knock around with my track staff in the morning, get that all out, happy with that. And then the acceptances lob at say 11. They flowed through to the database, probably 11:30, 12. And then I knocked off last night at about midnight. So that's my normal time to give me, and then I'll just potter through today and tomorrow, just touching up some things with some horses if I'm happy with this price, not happy with that price. So, yeah, it's a long day, but that's how it starts. Yeah, Wednesday, you got to put the time in. And, yeah, if you're willing to do it, there's great rewards at it, but, it's not easy. Do you spend much time on Sydney as well, or is your focus purely on Melbourne? It's purely Melbourne, but with the show Insider Trading we do, and then obviously the spin-off with the review of Money Men, we actually focus, we follow the carnival. So I'm lucky again to, once we have the autumn, we go to Sydney, Brisbane. In the winter, we go to Brisbane, and been really lucky this year that we did go to Brisbane because we identified and incentivised really early doors off that Toowoomba win, and we got really lucky with him. So I do go around the carnival and then Adelaide a little bit, but Melbourne's my bread and butter, and that's where I'll only purely bet. So I won't bet into Sydney, Adelaide, Brisbane or Perth. I will just purely bet in Victoria. That's just because it's what I know. That's where I try and stick to. Now, I asked if you could bring a good punting tale to the show. Have you got one for us? Well, I don't know if it's a good punting tale, but it probably was the start of my punting. I think I had to be grade 2 or grade 3. It was Melbourne Cup Day. It was 1992. And for some, Dad would always say you can have a bet. And I went, well, I'm having Quinella Sub-Zero Viander Cross. Anyway, we're at school. They run across the line. They finished first and second. I've gone absolutely cocoa bananas. I've gone to the teacher that she can go and get effed. I won't be coming back tomorrow because I've got the Quinella. That's it. I'm now going to live on an island like it's all over. Dad goes and tells me, well, that was the shortest price Quinella in the history of the Melbourne Cup. It's paid $4, mate. You're going back to school the next day. So it was very much a trudge back to school the next morning, but I was pretty excited. And I think that was what hooked me. in racing. So that was the start of it. And then, got probably a little bit lucky doing the form 3 or 4 years ago. We found cross counter early, and on Derby Day sort of did the prices for the Cup on Saturday night, marked it $6. And then obviously, the table betting $13, $14. I was out with a few mates who were at Crown, had some cash on me, and I just kept feeding it through the machine and got very lucky. And we actually ended up going for the company, going to Andrew Ciccella and myself were the 2 traders doing that Cup. We went to the call of the card, and we also backed him for the company as well. We knew we were going to make a lot of money off him if he won the race anyway, but then we thought, well, let's get some cream on top, and we backed him, just sort of being smartasses, and he won. So it was a good result. But for the same response that cross counter was great, I've got Tiger Moth last year, who was devastating as well. I sort of found him, and he gets beat. So for every good story, there's 1,000 bad ones I've got.
Yeah. What are you riding for the Cups this year?
Incentivise. We spoke about him in June, I think it was June 5, and we're very lucky in Melbourne. We weren't in lockdown. So got into those blue machines again, and we've got a nice little couple of tickets on Incentivise so you've got to play to hopefully he can get there in one piece. If he does, that'll be pretty good. And we've got Zaki going for a little bit in the Cox Plate, and I'm hoping he might even continue on to the McKinnon as well. So they're the 2, Incentivise and Zaki for me, but they're no spoil at the prices now.
I'll ask one more and then I'll let Hayden finish off. But I like to ask our guests, if you're having a weekend off and there's a tipster that you'll just grab their tips and back them. You're at a Bucks party and you haven't done the form. Which tips are you following?
Well, it'll be James Jordan.
Okay.
I'm good mates with James, and what he does in Adelaide's outstanding. We both worked on the trading floor at Sportsbet. He knows his stuff, and he's very, very good. So if I had my last dollar, I probably wouldn't put it to anyone, but if I had to, I'd give it to him. But I don't want him to know that because he's already got a big enough fucking ego.
Hayden, finish off.
I think James is a fantastic judge, but Jules, fair to give. If my last dollar's going to Adelaide, there's not an open L that's going to
Yeah, that Parks track, mate. That Parks track.
You can have that. Someone's going to go at the 800 and you're going to get stuck and you'll be crying. Nah, you can have Adelaide for mine. I'd just be saying to James, it can go to you, mate, but it's got to come over here or go to Sydney. We need one of Cummings's or one of Waller's.
He'd snip you anyway, James, so you probably wouldn't even put the bet on. It's a disgrace.
He'll take a cut of your last dollar.
You've been generous with your time, Jules. Was there anything you want to finish off with, Hayden?
Yeah, just for the punters out there, Jules, when you're doing reviews, etc., on TV, do the punters realise that when you say the words, I couldn't get it anywhere near that on my stuff, do the punters realise that within the next 7 to 21 days, you're about to take all their money on a flash home, get back style runner?
No, it's not. I'm not taking it. I tell you, I'm trying to give them as much. I will say, I think we're trying to give them as much information as we can to try and say those run-on runners are no good. You've got to be in the first 4 or 5, and I think it'll probably be the same again on Saturday. So, yeah, they want to have plenty on them. If the horses need to have plenty on their rivals if they're coming from last. But it's always a flashing light, and everyone loves them. Everyone wants to be on the Chautauquas because it's so exciting. But if you kept backing them, it's no good.
Bro. Yeah, I just listen very closely when Jay Vallance is on TV. And I just listen for those magical words and I just write them down. And at the end of it, I've just got to go check those 4, compare IVR. And if I can put the bullet in them as well, I know they're millions the next time they go round. So that's for the punters out there. You can pick up some clues on there's some good judges out there, Jules, and you're one of them.
Appreciate that.
And not many realise that, even with the stuff that I do with Vince, with the IVR stuff, it does come across quite cryptic. And you can't play all your cards because if you play all your cards, you're wasting your own time. So, people do drop hints. I drop hints on this show, etc. There are things that
call you out.
Yeah, he tries to call me out, and then I get him drastically wrong. A runner that I would typically get drastically wrong goes around this weekend when, again, I pick up a horse like September Run and say, okay, today's your day, little girl. You're a lot better than these. And the carrot's going to get dangled out with the price. And I'm even going to get a place price where I can get involved. So, there's a lot of cryptic stuff that goes on. People need to pay more attention to the flashing light less attention to the flashing light last 200 and more attention to some of the smart guys out there who are giving the little hints that this isn't all that's cranked up to be.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, you know, through history, we've all seen the Black Book as the horse that comes in the last 200 metres, but they just don't win enough. I mean, the stats show us that they just don't win enough. So, to be honest, the Black Booker should be the horse that is sitting in the first 4 or 5 and maybe knocks up the last 50 metres, but is going to be so much fitter next start, and you know where it's going to be. Yeah, I agree with everything you say there. It's a great puzzle, and yeah, you're right. I mean, we're going to be wrong so many times, and the more times you admit that you're wrong and don't try and justify that, I was actually right, but it didn't work out, the better you're going to be as a punter. And I think I've been plenty wrong many, many times, and I'll be wrong a bucket load of times on Saturday, but you just hope that you're right enough that you can get something out of it.
Jules, thanks for your time today. Did you want to finish off?
Yeah, I got one more for him. Something I've always wanted to know, because I've watched Jules on the TV for a long time. I know Jules got a good association with Vince Accardi, so he's a friend of the family. We often see you dressed, you know, something that's straight out of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air style wardrobe. Is that a Sportsbet allocated wardrobe, or is that fresh from home?
No, it's fresh from home, mate. I don't think Sportsbet are real too keen on the things that I wear, to be honest. I'm always getting the tap on the shoulder saying, can you please wear a collar? But tracksuits for me, it's like, you know, on the trading floor, we were working on the Saturdays for 9 years or whatever. You're lucky to get clothed half the time, mate. So, yeah, I'm always in the tracksuit, the pretty ordinary gear, but that's just what I am. That's what I do. So, unfortunately, I have to get dressed up and wear a suit sometimes. But, yeah, definitely not Sportsbet generated, mate.
And then the last question I've got, if it's not Sportsbet generated, if it's from Jay Valance's own closet, is it the Burke Street Mall style of purchase, or is it more the Queen Victoria Market, Addy Hash style, you know, Nick A, that style of brand? What are we dealing with?
I think I probably 15 years ago, I was a big thrift shop, right into all that sort of stuff. I was happy. And now, you know, I'm comfortable enough with how I'm going. So I can sort of just go a little bit to a different end. Yeah, I like a couple of brands out there, mate. Mason Katsuni's a nice brand. So I'll give them a plug. But, yeah, no, I like my clothes, mate, but not cool ones.
And then the last question I got the text message earlier in the day. The tan.
It fascinates people. I'm not on social media or anything like that, but my mates clearly are, and I'm continually getting, mate, this one's found you, this one's found you, this one's found you. It's fascinating that some think it's like a spray-on tan, or I can assure you that it's not. And something that's just hilarious. I think they're illegal. So, unfortunately, by all reports, I've just got more melanin in my system than other mere mortals. But no, I love the sun. I'm always out in it, and I know Melbourne's not the great spot for it, but anytime the sun comes out, I'll just be out there like I am now. I just absolutely love it. But I can't explain it. I cannot explain it. I mean, I came back from Europe a couple of years ago, and that's the darkest I've ever been. And I think people were questioning, like, fair income, what is your heritage? But yeah, it's definitely not fake. I can assure you that. That's on my mother's life. It's not fake.
Yeah, I do recall. I do recall watching you on the TV one night, and you had, I think you had the blue suit and the white collar on, and the boys were getting stuck into you. You looked like you nodded off in a solarium. That was a pretty serious
like sort of stuff from Seinfeld, really. That's what's going on there. Absolutely. No, yeah, I know. It's I can't explain it. But my mother's quite dark. My sister's very, very dark. Although I will say, and seriously, my sister was very dark, and now she's gone sun smart, very clever. I haven't, and I know that's probably the death of me. I don't use sunscreen. I never have since we were kids, and I know I should, but I've gone far down this path that it's game over for me, boys. But yeah, there you go.
And the last thing I'll say is from a person who is a data nerd, loves all the analytics of racing, etc. From me, thank you for being one of the first, I feel, to get on a racing platform and try and bring some entertainment value to the analytical side. It can be very dull and boring. We try and give it some life on here. I know that there's a couple of other boys out there, like the Mailbag, they like to have a bit of fun with it, Racing Rant, etc., that do, that have done this style of program long before us. But it's great to get some entertainment on TV, and I don't think that there's enough of it, and I don't think we have enough smart analytical guys who can bring some entertainment to the television. I don't think we have enough of them. I think it's a void. It's great just educating punters. So from me, thank you very much.
Appreciate that, Hayden. Yeah, it's one thing that I never wanted to be on TV. Trading was what I wanted to do, and I wanted to punt. And then we got the option, and I had a crack. And for whatever reason, they saw something, and I don't know what it was, and I still don't. But the idea was to always educate punters, because the only way you're going to sustainable get punters is to actually want them enjoying and know what they're talking about. So then they have more confidence to bet. So that's what we've tried to do. We're still working on it. There's plenty of other things we can try and delve into. But, yeah, that's what we try to do. So I appreciate that, mate. It means a lot when people like that, we get shout-outs. And I know a lot of people say we work for a corporate bookie and we're trying to, just worry about ourselves. We're not. We're just trying to make sure the game survives, because sport's coming down and knocking the doors down pretty quick.
Yeah, I think Sportsbet are one of the leaders in the content game. So thanks for your time today, Jules. Hayden's probably asked 5 last questions there, but that's how he operates sometimes. But we appreciate your time. For the next geners out there, Hayden and I are going to record a separate preview for Guineas Day. So you can jump back on wherever, if you're watching on YouTube or you're listening via iTunes and Spotify, there'll be a separate show for the preview. But thanks again, Jules. Good luck on the weekend, and we'll see you on .com on Saturday morning.
Appreciate it, boys. It was good fun. Well done. Doing a good job.
Jules.
See you soon, Hayden.